Throughout Black Myth Wukong, we encounter a wide array of characters, ranging from Yaoguais of the animal kingdom to the mythical beings of the celestial court. They come in all manner of shapes and sizes, bringing life to the story of Journey to the West. But among the most memorable of these characters and central figures is Zhu Baji, our pig Gwai companion, who guides the Destined One through most of the game, serving as the counterpart to our otherwise silent protagonist. But even those unfamiliar with the original novel will likely feel a familiarity to this character, as throughout the initial meeting it becomes very clear that Zhu Baji has a large history with Sun Wukong through the way he addresses the Destined One, and knows immediately what quest he's on. But what is that history? What is the story between Baji and Wukong? And who is this character exactly? Well, today I'm partnering with Game Science to tell you the story of Zhu Baji and give you more insight into Black Myth Wukong so that you can understand the game in a new light and enjoy the story even more. Zhu Baji is a half-man, half-pig who wields a 9-tooth rake for a weapon, able to further transform into a large boar, dark wind, and a catfish form. He's a central figure in Journey to the West, serving as one of the main cast members among the party of the monk Tang Sanzang. But who exactly is he, and how did he come to be the character we know of now? In Journey to the West, Zhu Baji, also known as Pigzy or Pig, is a complex and humorous character who accompanied the monk and his party on his pilgrimage to retrieve the Buddhist scriptures from India. His personal journey is marked by his gluttony, laziness, and tendency to chase after women, which often led him into trouble. But we also see that he proves himself to be loyal and brave, fiercely aiding his companions. Those of course including Sun Wukong and Sha Wujing, but we see his character particularly clash with Sun Wukong in a humorous way, constantly referred to as an idiot playfully. But we need to go back to the beginning of Zhu Baji's story. Before the events of the pilgrimage, Zhu Baji was a leader in the heavenly military, known then as Marshal Tianpong. He was once in charge of the heavenly navy of 100,000 warriors. But even though he had such a prominent position in the court, he was still a man of many vices, aspects of his character that we see very clearly in the game through his quirky personality. And this would ultimately lead to his downfall, because one night during a banquet of the court, he became drunk and set his eyes on the moon goddess Chang'e and made some advances at her, which she did not reciprocate. And she ultimately reported his actions to the Jade Emperor. The court thereby convened a trial and found that he had committed a grave breach of conduct, sentencing him to a harsh punishment to strip him of his rank and banish him from the heavenly realms. But that punishment came with some extra ties. To be reborn as a creature evident of his vices and desires, so he became Zhu Baji, a half-man, half-pig. And this is partially what we see happening in the end cutscene of Chapter 4, though the game tells it a little bit differently. From there, in some interpretations, Baji lived a wandering life, eventually settling near the Guo village. He retained his personality and memories of his past life, but was never free of his desires. This led him to eventually terrorize the village, living off of offerings that people brought to him in order to appease that terror. But that notoriety he gained there would be the trigger for his involvement in the scripture pilgrimage, though a particular encounter with the Bodhisattva Guanyin would lead him to seeking redemption. Reading from Chapter 18 of Journey to the West, in the mountains, Zhu Baji suddenly saw a radiant light approaching. Looking up, he saw a figure clad in a white robe and adorned with heavenly jewels. It was none other than the Bodhisattva Guanyin, standing serenely amidst the clouds. Awestruck, Zhu Baji knelt down in reverence. "Bodhisattva," he said, bowing low, "what brings you here?" Guanyin smiled gently. "I have come to offer you a chance at redemption. There is a monk traveling to the west to retrieve sacred scriptures. If you agree to protect him and mend your ways, you shall be redeemed." Zhu Baji hesitated, his heart torn between his desire for an easy life and the opportunity for salvation. Finally, bowing again, he agreed and the Bodhisattva departed, leaving him with a new sense of purpose. So if not for the divine intervention of the Bodhisattva, Zhu Baji would have been content to live that simple life terrorizing a village and being appeased through offerings. And even after this encounter, he still does live according to those ways for a time, until the party eventually comes to him. And we see this happen later on in that same chapter. The villagers told Tang Sanzang and Sun Wukong about a monster, Zhu Gangli, who lived nearby and had taken a woman as his wife by force. Sun Wukong decided to confront the monster and arrived at the household where Zhu Baji lived. Sun Wukong, using his ability to change his form, disguised himself as a young woman to lure Zhu Baji into a trap. When Zhu Baji saw the woman outside, he thought she was his wife and called out, "Where are you going, my dear? Come back to me." Sun Wukong, still disguised, did not reply, but continued to walk away. Zhu Baji, impatient, grabbed his 9-tooth rake and approached, shouting, "Don't you dare ignore me." Sun Wukong transformed back into his true form and swung his golden staff, revealing himself to Zhu Baji. Zhu Baji stepped back, startled. He yelled, "Who are you, daring to challenge me here?" Sun Wukong laughed and replied, "I am the great sage equal to heaven, here to teach you a lesson." With that, they began to fight. Zhu Baji swung his 9-tooth rake fiercely, and Sun Wukong countered each blow with his staff. The sounds of their weapons clashing echoed through the valley, and the ground shook under their feet. As they fought, Zhu Baji noticed Sun Wukong's strength and realized he might be outmatched. Seeing that the fight was not in his favor, Zhu Baji stopped and said, "Enough, enough, please no more fighting, I yield. Who are you and what do you want with me?" Sun Wukong put down his staff and replied, "I am on a pilgrimage with my master, the monk Tang Sanzang, to retrieve scriptures from the western heaven. Guan Yin told us we would find a companion here, someone who was once a marshal in heaven. Is that you by any chance?" Zhu Baji recognized the reference to his past life and replied sheepishly, "Yes, I am Zhu Baji, the former Marshal Tianpong. I was exiled for my misdeeds and transformed into this form. Guan Yin showed me mercy and instructed me to wait here to assist the pilgrim monk. Please, take me to your master. I promise to serve faithfully from now on." So we can see very clearly that Zhu Baji as a character is not only troubled by his own vices, but is also aware of his shortcomings. He's a very human character, and when that's put side by side with characters like the Bodhisattvas and the enlightened ones of the heavenly court, then those become all the more apparent. But now that we know who Zhu Baji is and his background, how does the game portray him? When we encounter Zhu Baji for the first time in the game, he's trapped inside 2 golden symbols, bargaining for his release with the Kangjin star who is guarding him. But after we, the Destined One, free him from the symbols, he assumes companionship once again to lead the Destined One to the scattered relics. And the journey that follows thereafter is of course very expansive, and there are tons of events involving both Sun Wukong and Zhu Baji that are hinted at throughout the game, but by far the most reference for Zhu Baji's story is his relation to the Spider Sisters of the Webbed Hollow in Chapter 4. In the cutscene, the game portrays that Zhu Baji encountered the Violet Spider while chasing after the Moon Goddess prior to his banishment and transformation, but still decided to go after the Moon Goddess instead. Later on, after he's transformed, and during his period of wandering, he finds the Spider Sisters in the Webbed Hollow and recognizes the Violet Spider among them. So he transforms into his catfish form and swims up to her, and instead of seeing a catfish pig, she sees the celestial marshal that he used to be, the one she saw up in heaven. And so rather than being fearful of him for his curse as the pig guy, she knows who he is. And of course she has a curse of her own, being one of the Spider Sisters. So their love flourished for a time, but Baji ultimately knew that he couldn't stay with them, not after angering the celestial court. As punishment, he knew that his presence with them would ultimately bring them harm, a theme that we see throughout the game. Very explicitly at the end of Chapter 5, where the Bull King drags his family into his problems and is subdued by the Celestial Court. That's why when we get to Chapter 3, and Zhu Baji reunites with the Spider family, he treats them with hostility, acting as if he doesn't know them, which in a way is overcoming his vices and selfish desires, doing it for their own good rather than his own satisfaction and peace with his family. But of course, at the end of Chapter 4, after we defeat the Thousand-Eyed Taoist and the Violet Spider dies, we see Baji's true emotions come out, showing us that he did actually care all along. We do see in the game that Zhu Baji's loyalty ultimately lies with his friends, Sun Wukong in particular, as he aids the Destined One all the way to the end. The events of Zhu Baji's journey throughout the novel portray him as a flawed but also virtuous character, and his flaws make him more human, in contrast of the perfection of the enlightened celestial beings. But that's what makes him such an alluring character. Baji is probably my second favorite character in the game after Erlong Shen, which if you haven't seen the last lore video on Erlong, definitely check that out. But what did you think about Zhu Baji? Did you enjoy his company throughout the game? Let me know down below. But with all that, if you enjoyed today's video, be sure to leave a like on it and subscribe if you're new around here. Definitely check out Black Myth Wukong if you haven't.